Marcus Chen offered his last ration pack to a group of starving alien refugees, huddled in a ruined spaceport on the frontier world of Harrow's Edge. He didn't ask their species or status, only saw beings in need. As the eldest refugee accepted the food with trembling hands, her companions bowed deeply, a gesture Marcus didn't understand. He'd just broken bread with an exiled empress. Marcus was a human aid worker operating a refugee shelter in the contested outer reaches where 3 alien civilizations had collapsed into civil wars, creating millions of displaced beings. He ran a makeshift sanctuary in an abandoned cargo terminal, providing food, medical care, and safety to anyone who arrived regardless of faction or species. He was a former logistics officer who left military service after witnessing civilian casualties during a supply convoy attack. Now he was driven by the belief that helping one person at a time was the only way to counter the chaos. The refugees he encountered were Syl'varen elegant, crystalline-skinned beings whose empire once controlled 17 star systems before fracturing into violent succession wars. This particular group of 5 arrived 3 days ago, exhausted and silent, wearing tattered robes that might once have been ornate. Marcus noticed they carried themselves with unusual dignity despite their circumstances. The eldest, a woman with silver-veined crystalline skin, watched everything with eyes that had commanded, not merely survived. Marcus didn't pry into their past. The outer reaches were full of people running from something, and his shelter's only rule was leave your wars outside. He shared what little food he had, taught them basic survival skills, and treated their minor injuries with his limited medical supplies. On the 7th day, a Syl'varen warship emerged from hyperspace and established orbit above Harrow's Edge. It wasn't a refugee ship, it was a hunter-killer class vessel, heavily armed and broadcasting demands for traitors to the legitimate throne to surrender. Marcus's communication array intercepted the transmission. The ship's commander was hunting a group of 5 Syl'varen, who fled the capital world after supporting the false empress in the succession conflict. The description matched his refugees exactly. Marcus looked at the eldest refugee, whose expression had transformed from quiet dignity to something harder recognition and resignation. She spoke to him for the first time in fluent standard galactic. "You should turn us over. Your shelter will be spared if you cooperate. The commander is ... thorough." Marcus learned the truth. She was Empress Lysara Tel'vesh, rightful heir to the Syl'varen celestial throne, deposed by her younger brother through military coup after she refused to authorize the genocide of a rebellious colony world. Her 4 companions were the last of her royal guard who chose exile over serving a tyrant. The warship commander contacted Marcus directly, offering safe passage off-world and substantial payment for cooperation with a legitimate government. Marcus saw through the translation. They were offering him a bribe to hand over refugees who trusted his protection. He thought of the convoy attack that made him leave. Military service remembered watching civilians beg for mercy while commanders calculated acceptable losses. Marcus told the commander his shelter was neutral ground and all beings under his roof were under his protection. The Syl'varen commander's response was cold. "Then you have chosen to share their fate, human." The Syl'varen warship deployed a combat team, 12 elite soldiers in powered armor. They landed outside Marcus's shelter and gave him one final chance to comply. Marcus stepped outside alone, unarmed, placing himself between the soldiers and the shelter entrance. The team leader demanded the Empress and her guards. Marcus refused. "This is neutral ground. They're refugees under my protection." The Syl'varen soldier laughed. "Human, you have no authority here. You protect nothing. Stand aside or be eliminated as an accomplice to treason." Marcus didn't move. His hands shook. Not from fear, from controlled fury. "I'm a human," Marcus said quietly. Do you know what that means? My species didn't earn our place in this galaxy through superior weapons or ancient bloodlines. We earned it by being too stubborn to die and too angry to quit. You want to hurt people under my protection? You'll have to go through me. The soldier raised his weapon. Marcus did something that made no tactical sense but was purely, viscerally human. He released a guttural roar that came from millions of years of primate territorial defense. A sound that said, "This ground is mine and you will not pass." The soldier hesitated. Just for a moment. In that moment, Empress Lysara emerged from the shelter, her 4 royal guards beside her. But they weren't surrendering, they were standing with Marcus. Lysara spoke with the voice of someone who commanded star systems. This human showed us mercy when we had nothing. He shared his last food with strangers. He offered protection when we were powerless. If you want us, you go through him and you go through us. The combat team faced a choice: execute a human civilian who helped refugees, kill an exiled empress and her guards, and confirm to the galaxy that the new Syl'varen regime murders those who show compassion, or retreat and deal with the political complications later. The team leader made a calculation. Killing Marcus, especially after his defiant stand became known, would turn him into a symbol. Martyrs are dangerous. The commander withdrew, but promised, "This isn't over." Marcus's voice was steady. "Yes, it is. Because I'm not moving, and you're not willing to kill someone for feeding the hungry." The Syl'varen warship held orbit for 3 more days, a silent threat. But word of Marcus's confrontation spread across the networks. A human aid worker defied a warship to protect refugees, including an exiled empress. Other species took notice. Within 48 hours, 3 neutral merchant vessels arrived at Harrow's Edge, offering to evacuate Marcus's shelter under their combined protection. The warship withdrew rather than start a multi-species incident. Before Empress Lysara left, she knelt before Marcus, a gesture that shocked her guards. In Syl'varen culture, empresses knelt for no one. You gave us food when we starved. You gave us protection when we were hunted. You gave us something more precious. You reminded us what honor means. She pressed something into Marcus's hand, a crystal seal bearing the celestial throne's crest. If I ever reclaim my throne, or if any Syl'varen loyal to the true crown finds you, show them this. You will have safe passage in any territory we hold and the protection of the celestial line. Marcus didn't want payment or status, but he accepted the crystal because he recognized it for what it was: not a reward, but a promise. A promise that compassion creates bonds stronger than fear. Lysara and her guards boarded a merchant vessel. As they departed, Marcus returned to his shelter, to the dozens of other refugees who still needed food, medical care, and protection. Marcus went back to work. That's what humans do. They keep working, keep helping, keep standing between the vulnerable and those who would harm them. 6 months later, civil war in Syl'varen space reached a tipping point. Empress Lysara returned at the head of a coalition who rejected the coup regime's brutality. The story of the human who shared bread and defied a warship became a rallying symbol. Marcus continued running his shelter, now with more resources, as various species quietly donated supplies for the human who protected refugees. He didn't see himself as heroic. He saw himself as someone doing what should be normal, treating desperate people with basic human decency. The crystal seal Lysara gave him sat on a shelf in his shelter, a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts echo the loudest. Across the outer reaches, the phrase "Chen's ground" entered common usage, meaning a place where the helpless find protection, where someone stands firm and says, "Not here. Not these people." Marcus never learned the full extent of how his actions influenced Syl'varen politics. He just knew that every morning more refugees arrived at his shelter, and every morning he shared what he had. Because that's what humans do, they give when they have nothing left to give.